What is up, everyone? Jeremy here. Welcome to another video in the tone sample series. Listen, your search for the perfect mix-ready impulse responses is done. Bogren Digital just recently dropped their new Leads and Cleans IR pack. This is in addition to the Rhythms IR pack, which has been out for a little while, and they just recently updated and added new IRs too. So we now have a complete suite of impulse responses to cover cleans, leads, and rhythms. Don't take my word for it though. I have an audio sample ready to roll in just a second for you to hear how amazing these things sound in a mix. So give that a listen and then stick around after the audio sample to break down which IRs I used, which amp sims I used. The entire session will run through it all. So if that interests you, stick around. All right, so you can hear for yourself just how amazing these IRs sound. So let's go ahead and jump into the DAW and take a look at this session and talk about how I put together these tones. So very briefly, before we get into the guitar tones, I just want to mention what I use for drums and bass, because those are often questions asked on videos like this, where I'm talking about a guitar tone. I often overlook what I used for the other parts of the session. So for drums, it was Get Good Drums Invasion. And for bass, it was Submission Audio Gin Bass. Now, for Gin Bass, I did use a custom tone that I put together using the stock Logic Pedalboard and Bass Amp Designer. Gin Bass is just driving the DI, so I'm only using the DI output from Gin Bass. If you're interested in learning how I put together that custom high gain bass tone, I'll put a link up here in the corner. You can go check out that video I've already got up on my channel, which will describe the entire process of putting together that tone. Now, let's go ahead and talk about how I put together the guitar tones in the audio sample you just heard and what Bogren Digital IRs I used across clean, rhythm, and leads. So first up is the clean tone. And I want to talk about the signal chain very, very briefly, just so that you know how I put together the entire tone. And so the very first thing is the guitar was an Ibanez RG Series with a Seymour Duncan Invader pickup. going into a Behringer Ultra DI Pro, from there to my Focusrite Scarlett audio interface, and then into the Mac, and then we end up in the DAW. And now looking at the plugins that I used on these clean tones, we have the Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack, and we have a trimmer first thing here, just pulling back a little bit of the signal. It's just a little bit too hot. Going into the New York preamp with just a very smidge of saturation. It's almost unnoticeable, but just something I like to add. And then we go into the Ssl Channel Strip. You can see the settings that I've got here. Doing some EQ moves, just trying to clean up that DI signal, just basically cut it, high passing and low passing, and then cutting back some around 430 hertz, boosting up at 1.4 kilohertz, and then just a smidge of a boost at 8.39 kilohertz, and then some compression just to clean up the signal of the DI signal of my clean track. And then we go into the Ssl amp hub, and there are no pedals in the pedalboard section being used. We're going into the Mr. Hectic, which is a brand new amp model in amp hub as of this month of this year, that being March of 2021, using the clean channel here, and then going into the Bogren Digital Clean IR pack, and specifically the Motel California IR. So what I'm going to do here is just to give you an example of some of these IRs in this clean pack. I'm going to go ahead and play. I've got just the one track of this clean part soloed. It's mono right up the middle. And then I'm just going to click through a few of these IRs so that you can get an idea of what some of them sound like outside of just the one that you heard in the audio sample, and which that's the one I'm going to start with. So here we go. All right, so that gives you an idea of what some of these sound like. As you can see, I don't know, I'm not going to count them all. What is this, like maybe 20 of them or 25, something like that, in this entire pack. And you just heard what, maybe 6 of them. And even in those 6, they're so pristine. They're so good. So that's an example of the clean pack from Bogren Digital. All right, so next up, we're going to take a look at the rhythm tone and talk about how I put that together. So just as you saw with the cleans, we're using the Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack. We're put with the trimmer to pull back that hot signal just a little bit. We're going into the New York preamp. From there, we go into the Ssl Channel Strip, just like before, just to have it. We're just maybe making some bigger EQ moves here, pulling back more of that low end, boosting up more of the mids, specifically 1.4 kilohertz, and really boosting up more of the highs at 8.39. Less compression here, just a tiny bit, so that if we do any sort of low open chugs, which are happening in here, it doesn't get woofy. So that is the channel strip settings. And then the Ssl amp hub. So starting with our pedalboard section, we have the Max Drive M808. Engaged, we have the level all the way up. We have tone at 8.5 and drive was 0. Then we go into the Mr. Hectic amp, just as you saw with the cleans, but now we are in the I don't know if they call it lead or rhythm or whatever channel it is, but we have, or I guess it's lead. I see it there now. So the lead channel. So we're going into the lead channel now. We're adding that gain on here. You can see the settings. And then we go into the Bogren Digital Rhythm IR pack. Specifically, we're using 2 different IRs, one for the left and one for the right, just to try and help create some tonal differences between the left channel and the right channel, and really help maybe expand the overall mix and make it sound a little bit wider because of those tonal differences. And so we're using Greasy Beard on the left and Bald Beauty on the right. And I will go ahead and just play back a section of this rhythm, this one rhythm track. I've got it right up the middle mono, so it's not going to sound stereo, but what I'm going to do is just slide this fader here right here back and forth between Greasy Beard and Bald Beauty, so you can get an example of what those sounded like, or at least the tonal differences between the two that were happening on the left channel versus the right channel. So here's what they sound like. All right, so there you go. That gives you an example of what those tonal differences were. And so you can imagine having the Greasy Beard on the left, the Bald Beauty on the right. That's going to give us that tonal difference and help expand the overall sound of our mix. All right, so that's an example of the IRs used in this track. If you're interested in hearing more of the IR pack, go check out this video. I'll put a link up here in the corner. That is my video that I had previously released on the Rhythm IR pack. So go check that out. Last one is our lead tone. So let's take a look at this channel here. So we have the Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack again with pulling back the signal, same New York preamp going into the Ssl Channel Strip with the exact same settings, except for we just have a little bit more compression happening here on this lead tone. The exact same settings as the rhythm tone, I should mention, but just a little bit more compression. And then we go into Ssl Amp Hub. You can see I'm using the brand new 10-band EQ. This was in the latest March 2021 update that just came out. And then I'm going into the compression pedal with those settings, and then the Max Drive 808 again. You can see the only difference here is I've pulled back the tone to 6.4. I've got the drive at 7.5 now, so we're using some drive. And then we're going into the 5153, which is a killer amp, especially for leads. We're on the red channel. You can see the settings I've got there. All right, and the last section is the impulse response section. And of course, we are going into the Bogren Digital Lead impulse responses, and specifically the Amon to dot impulse response. And I will go ahead and I've got this lead track soloed, and I'll go ahead and click through maybe 5 to 6 of these IRs so you can get an example of what these sound like as well. Before I do that, just very briefly, I wanted to mention I do have some post effects on this lead track as well. We've got some delay, reverb, and chorus. You can see the settings on the screen there. And then let's go ahead and just click through some of these IRs on this lead track, and you can get an example of what they sound like. Yeah, I mean, these things sound so good, so mix ready. Just drop in and they cut right through the mix. And to that point, you know, you may be asking yourself, like, why are these IRs so good? Like, what makes these the ultimate drop-in mix ready IRs? The fact is, Jens Bogren knows what he is doing. He's been doing this a long time, and he understands how to mic a cab and what speakers to use, what mic to even use, what cabinets to use, how to mic them, where to mic them on the cone. And especially when you have a lead, if you don't know what you're doing, you can very easily get, like, that lead can be drowned out by other tonal frequencies in your mix. So knowing how to mic a cab and what mic to use and the placement and all of that is super important to be able to have a lead tone that cuts through your mix like these do. Same thing with rhythms. You want that ultra crushing, scorching rhythm tone. That's what these impulses are going to give you in that rhythm pack. And then the clean tones, you want that pristine, ultra clean sound. That's what these IRs are going to give you, as you've heard in the audio sample. And so that's why it's so important to use IRs that are not just raw, captured and you're just dropping into your mixes and thinking you're going to get these incredible tones when that's not the case. Having an IR pack like the one that Bogren Digital is providing, specifically with the leads and the cleans and the rhythms across the entire spectrum, gives us these drop-in mix-ready impulse responses that for our leads will cut through the mix. For our rhythms will have ultra chug to them and just sound super sick. And then these super pristine cleans. Like that is why these impulse response packs are so incredible and so important, right? And I get a lot of questions and a lot of responses on my mixes and comments on my videos where I have these audio samples, and people are asking me, like, what is it that makes the mix sound so good? Like, how do you get these great sounding mixes? A lot of it is because of these impulse responses like this that are just designed to sound so good and fit in a mix so well. I hope that was useful to you, and that is the session and everything that I put together on this session and how I put together those guitar tones. There they are, everyone, the leads, cleans, and rhythms IR pack from Bogren Digital. All right, what are your thoughts on these IRs? What did you think of how these things sounded in the mix? Hit me down in the comments and let me know. And if you dig this content and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would ask you to please consider subscribing. That button is right down below as well. If you dig this video, hit like and share. And as always, thank you for watching and thank you for your support.